The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and fresh marigold. Soft, sitar music played in the background as gold-clad waiters carried trays of chilled drinks across the grand ballroom. Everything sparkled, crystal chandeliers, embroidered lehengas, expensive smiles. It was the kind of wedding people whispered about for weeks afterward. And I, Meera Sharma, stood at the edge of the chaos, trying to remind myself that today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My son, Raghav, my only child, my pride and reason for surviving the hardest years, was getting married. He looked radiant, tall, calm, and handsome in his ivory sherwani. He looked just like his father did on our wedding day. For a moment, my heart swelled with emotion, and a tear traced its way down my cheek. If only Arun were here to see this. He would have been so proud. My friends, some old neighbors, a few relatives, had come to me with warm hugs and kind words. "You must be so proud, Meera."
"He looks just like his father, God rest his soul. What a beautiful bride."
And yes, Anya was beautiful, graceful in a deep red lehenga that must have cost a fortune. She walked like a movie star, smiled like a politician, flawlessly and with calculation. But there was something about her eyes, always scanning, always judging. I had tried to bond with her during the engagement. Brought her home, cooked meals, tried to learn about her interests, made space for her in my home and heart. But she was distant, polite, yes, but cold. I brushed it off. Some girls take time. She'll warm up, I thought. But now, as I stood on the fringes of the glittering venue, watching her float among the guests like a queen, I felt invisible. No one introduced me as the groom's mother. No one even asked me to sit on the stage during the rituals. I was escorted to the second row, behind her aunts and cousins, like a distant guest. And then it happened. As the Sangeet performance ended and the crowd applauded, Anya took the mic. She looked radiant, confident, and, if I'm honest, arrogant. "I just want to take a moment," she began, her voice clear and commanding, "to thank everyone who came here to celebrate this new chapter in our lives." The guests clapped politely. "I especially want to thank my amazing parents for teaching me what a modern marriage should look like. And of course, my in-laws." She glanced toward me, and for the first time that day, our eyes met. Her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Well, my mother-in-law, who, let's say, really shows me what the older generation believed marriage was. Sacrifice, silence, submission. People laughed, thinking it was a joke. I didn't. I knew exactly what she was doing. But I think we've evolved since then, haven't we? A marriage now is a partnership, not a one-woman sacrifice story. No offense to anyone from that era. I stood frozen, a smile plastered on my face while the laughter swelled around me. I felt the weight of dozens of eyes turning to me with awkward pity, masked as amusement. I wanted to melt into the floor. Even Raghav chuckled a little, rubbing the back of his neck, not looking in my direction. No one spoke up. No one stopped her. Not even my son. I excused myself quietly and walked out into the corridor. My hands were trembling. The bangles on my wrists jingled faintly, like mocking applause. I leaned against the wall, heart pounding. Not from anger, but from pain. Deep, searing pain. Had all my years of sacrifice, love, and loyalty come down to this moment? A public jab from a girl who barely knew the life I'd lived? I stared at my phone in my hand. For a moment, I just held it. Then, slowly, deliberately, I unlocked it. There was a number I hadn't dialed in years. A name I had tucked away in the past folder of my life. Just like I had tucked away the woman I used to be before widowhood, before motherhood consumed everything. I scrolled through the contacts and paused at her name. Devika Malhotra, old friend, once inseparable. Now a successful media personality and business consultant who owed me more than a few favors. I tapped Cal. The phone rang once, twice. Then, Meera. "Oh my God! It's been, 10 years?" she said, laughter in her voice. I took a breath. My voice was calm, but my heart was steel. "Devika," I said softly, "I think it's time we caught up. Are you okay?" Devika asked gently from the other end of the line. I hesitated. watching guests shuffle past me in the hallway, their glittering shoes tapping against marble tiles. I forced a steady breath. No, I finally said, but I will be. 2 days had passed since the wedding. The house was quiet now. Raghav and Anya had left for their honeymoon to Greece. The staff had finished cleaning up the last of the confetti and rose petals. The fridge still smelled of wedding sweets, untouched boxes with congratulatory notes. I sat alone on the balcony, the same spot where I used to rock baby Raghav to sleep 27 years ago. The wind that night was cool and kind. It reminded me of a different time, a time when I believed that love and loyalty were enough to protect you. Divika came the next morning. She didn't wait to be invited in. She never did. She wore a tailored navy, blue pantsuit, sunglasses too big for her face, and heels that clicked with purpose. But when she saw me, she took them off at the door and opened her arms. I broke down in them like I was 20 again. I shouldn't have called you. I whispered against her shoulder. This isn't your battle. She stepped back, looked at me with a dry smirk. Oh, sweetie. The moment I heard your voice, I made it my battle. Though we sat in the living room, sipping strong ginger tea while I told her everything, from the fake sweetness during the engagement to the growing coldness after. About the night of the Sangeet, about Anya's speech, the laughter, the humiliation. Devika listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she leaned forward and said one thing. Tell me what you want, Mira. I blinked. What? You called me for a reason, so tell me. Do you want her broken? Do you want her humiliated like she did to you? Or, she paused, do you want her to learn something? I looked at my tea, the ripples slowly settling in the cup. I don't want to destroy her, I said finally. She's young, arrogant. Maybe she thinks she's being brave, but I want her to understand the value of respect, and family, and dignity not for me, for herself. Divika smiled faintly. Then we do this the right way. That afternoon, Divika opened her laptop. Let's find out who your darling daughter-in-law really is. We began digging. Not maliciously, just cautiously. Devika had resources I didn't know existed. She made a few calls, pulled up records, sent subtle messages through social channels. Nothing illegal, nothing obvious. What we found wasn't scandalous, but it was revealing. Anya's family, the Banderas, weren't as spotless as they seemed. Her father had quietly settled a fraud case 3 years ago involving fake investment schemes. Her uncle had been investigated for money laundering, and Anya herself had started a women's NGO that raised significant funds but never filed proper reports. She's a brand, Devika said. Smart, sharp, always on camera. But beneath that image, it's all smoke and mirrors. I stared at the screen, at a video of Anya on a talk show. She was laughing, polished, saying something about leaving behind regressive Indian traditions. I touched the screen. She doesn't even know who she's hurting. Maybe it's time someone reminded her, Devika said softly. That night, I opened a box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were old photographs, black and white wedding pictures, a faded college certificate, tiny shoes Raghav wore as a baby, and a letter. From Arun, the last one he wrote me before the accident. Mira, raise our son to be strong, but never let him forget where he came from. Remind him that love without gratitude is just pride in disguise. I closed the box gently. The next morning, I told Devika what I wanted. I don't want to attack her, I said. I want to show her what real strength looks like, not in speeches, in silence, in survival. Devika nodded. Understood, we go subtle. Over the next few days, Devika set things in motion. She leaked a small, anonymous tip to a finance blog about Anya's NGO records. Nothing damning, just enough to raise questions. A journalist picked it up. A day later, a government official requested the NGO's past financial reports. Social media murmured, not roared. But that was enough. Anya's team began issuing statements. Her father, already under quiet scrutiny, made some calls. And for the first time in her carefully curated life, Anya was off balance. Meanwhile, I said nothing. I cooked. I cleaned. I fed the neighborhood strays. I even answered Raghav's video calls during their honeymoon, smiling gently at his excitement and pretending nothing had changed. Because the best revenge isn't loud, it's graceful. One evening, I got a call from Raghav. His voice was low. "Ma, is everything okay back home?"
Of course, Beta. Why do you ask?
He hesitated. "Anya's been a little off. She's snapping at everyone. Seems stressed. I don't know if it's the trip or something else." I offered a small smile. Maybe the real world is catching up to her. He paused. "What does that mean?" "Nothing," I said softly. "Enjoy your honeymoon, Beta," and I ended the call. I stood at the window that night, watching the city lights blink like tired stars. Devika sat beside me, pouring herself another drink. "You still sure about this approach?" she asked. "You could have flattened her reputation in one email." I nodded. "She thinks I'm weak," I whispered. "That my silence is surrender. But silence can be the sharpest blade, Devika. Let her walk into her own reflection. Let her see what she's become." Devika raised her glass. "To poetic revenge." I didn't toast. I just whispered to the night. "To dignity." The wind carried the smell of wet earth that morning. Rain had come early, painting the city in shades of gray and gold. I stood on the veranda, a warm cup of tea in my hand, watching droplets fall from the neem tree in our yard. Everything looked peaceful. But I knew better. The storm hadn't passed. It had just begun. Anya and Raghav returned from their honeymoon a week later. I had cleaned the house top to bottom, cooked Anya's favorite paneer tikka, and laid out fresh flowers in their room. Not because I had to, but because dignity doesn't crumble when faced with arrogance. It stands taller. She walked into the house wearing sunglasses and a branded scarf around her neck, barely acknowledging me. "Namaste, Mumji," she said with the same forced sweetness she used on her Instagram stories. I smiled politely. "Welcome home, Beta." Raghav hugged me.
"Who brought you some gifts?"
I took the paper bag and thanked them both. Inside were perfume bottles and a scarf I'd never wear. But it wasn't the gifts I was interested in. It was her eyes. She was nervous, pretending to be calm, but the worry was there, in her furrowed brow, in the way her phone buzzed repeatedly in her handbag. She checked it when she thought I wasn't looking. Later that evening, I heard them arguing softly behind their closed door. "She's fine, Anya. Ma has done nothing wrong."
"You don't get it. Raghav!"
"Things are piling up." My dad's being questioned about the old case again. Some idiot blogger is targeting my NGO.
"I have no idea who's feeding this garbage!"
"Maybe it's not garbage if people are picking it up." Silence. Then footsteps. Their door opened. I went back to my knitting. A day later, Devika texted me. "Check today's edition of The Insider Lens. Page 7. I walked down to the local newsstand and bought a copy." There it was. Cracks behind the smile. The Bandari family's perfect facade shows flaws. It was a carefully worded article. No direct accusations, but full of uncomfortable questions. Sources claim. Alleged inconsistencies. Unverified finances. The kind of article that doesn't end reputations, but stains them with just enough doubt. I knew Anya would see it. Her entire identity was built on perception. Being admired, envied followed. This would claw at her image like rust. At dinner that night, she was quiet. She picked at her food, barely touching the pulao. "My," Raghav said. "We were thinking of attending that charity gala next week. The one at the Oberoi." Oh, I smiled. I received an invitation as well. Anya looked up startled. "You did?" "Yes. Devika is hosting it." Her fork paused midair. "Devika Malhotra." "The same. We went to college together." "She's like a sister." Raghav raised an eyebrow. "You never mentioned her." "Some bonds don't need constant mention to be strong." Anya excused herself early that night. When I collected her plate, it was barely touched. The next few days, preparations for the gala filled the house. Devika sent a new sari for me, midnight blue with silver work, elegant but simple. She also sent something else, a small drive. "It's time," she had said. You asked for a lesson, not destruction, so we'll give her a mirror. On the day of the gala, I got ready slowly. I wore the saree, lined my eyes with kohl like I used to in my youth, pinned a gadra to my bun. For once, I didn't look like someone's mother-in-law. I looked like Mira again. The ballroom was flooded with lights, soft jazz playing in the background. A sea of influencers, industrialists, and journalists filled the room with clinking glasses and curated laughter. I arrived alone, and yet every eye turned when I walked in. Because grace doesn't need an entrance. It creates one. Anya arrived shortly after, in a designer gown that shimmered like stardust. She looked surprised to see me already mingling with the hosts, with Devika, with a few politicians she clearly didn't expect me to know. Devika took the stage mid-event. Tonight, she announced, we also highlight a few unsung heroes, women who've lived lives of silent strength. A short video began playing. It wasn't flashy, no dramatic music, just photos. Of women, of widows raising children alone, of small business owners, of single mothers in slums. And in between, me, a younger me, holding baby Raghav, a me in a simple cotton sari running a community kitchen, teaching women to sew, speaking at a school. I didn't even know those photos still existed. Devika's voice narrated in the background. Sometimes, the strongest women are not the ones on magazine covers. They are the ones with cracked hands and silent pride. They're not trending, they're surviving. The audience clapped. And then, almost gently, the second part of the video began. Clips from interviews Anya had given, snippets of speeches, where she claimed her NGO helped thousands, where she spoke of personal struggle. But Devika had layered it with statistics. Official reports showing gaps, financial inconsistencies, and real footage from 2 beneficiaries who had never received the promised help. It wasn't an attack. It was a question. Is image more important than impact? Silence followed the video. Anya stood frozen, her face pale. Then the applause began, not for her, for the quiet women in the video, for the truth behind the silence. I did not look at her. I walked outside into the night air and breathed. 10 minutes later, Anya found me by the fountains. You planned this? She hissed, voice trembling. You made a fool of me. No, Beta, I said calmly. You did that yourself. I simply gave the world the whole picture. She stared at me, eyes filled with something I hadn't seen before. Not anger. Fear. You could have ruined me. I nodded.
Yes, I could have.
She stepped back, swallowing hard. Why didn't you? I looked at the stars above. Because if I ruined you, you'd never learn. But if I made you see yourself, maybe there's still hope for you to become better. She didn't respond. She just turned and walked away, head down, heels clicking, mask cracked, and I stood there still, at peace. That night, as I removed my earrings and unpinned my hair, Raghav knocked on the door. Yes, Beta. He came in slowly, closing the door behind him. I saw the video. I nodded. Did you know about it? I looked at him honestly.
Yes.
He sat down beside me on the bed. I didn't recognize her anymore, he said quietly. She's so different from the girl I thought I married. I said nothing. He needed space, not answers. She'll need to change, he said finally. Or she'll lose everything. And for the first time, I didn't rush to comfort him. Sometimes, they have to hurt before they understand what matters. Anya didn't speak to me for 3 days after the gala. Not a word, not a glance. She floated around the house like a ghost, her heels clicking on marble like ticking clocks, echoing guilt through the silence. I didn't chase her. I didn't try to explain. Some storms don't need an umbrella, they need to drench the soul. Raghav noticed the shift too. He became quieter, more reflective. The sparkle that had lit up his eyes during their engagement was dimmer now, shadowed by questions he didn't yet know how to ask. On the 4th morning, Anya finally spoke. Mumji, can we talk? I looked up from my newspaper, nodded once, and set it aside. She sat across from me at the dining table. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes. her phone tucked away for the first time since the wedding. "I don't know why you did it," she began, her voice small. "But I know it was you." I stayed quiet. You embarrassed me. You made me look like a liar in front of everyone." I raised an eyebrow. Did I? Or did I simply allow the truth to speak for itself? She looked away, blinking fast. "I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just thought you were old-fashioned, too traditional. I wanted to show I was different." "You wanted to be modern, not meaningful." She frowned. "There's nothing wrong with being different, Anya," I said gently. "But modern doesn't mean disrespectful. It means wiser, kinder, more self-aware. You didn't want to be modern. You wanted to be applauded." Silence settled between us like dust. "You hurt me that day," I added. "Not because of what you said, but because I raised a son who didn't stop you." Her eyes widened. "I gave up everything for Raghav. I never wanted anything back, except love. You mocked that. You turned my silence into a joke, my sacrifices into sarcasm. And worse, you made the world laugh at me." Anya looked down, ashamed. "I didn't think." "No, you didn't." That afternoon, Raghav returned early from work. I heard them arguing in the study. "You can't keep blaming my mother for your mistakes." "Anya! She's manipulating everything!" "She's done nothing but show restraint and dignity, while you treated her like a disposable prop." A door slammed. I didn't flinch. Devika called later that evening.
Is she cracking? She's bending.
I replied. "We'll see if she breaks." The next week was oddly quiet. Anya canceled a podcast appearance. Her social media was silent. No new photos, no new brand deals, no hashtag activism. I watched her retreat into herself. She began spending more time alone. Started reading again. One afternoon, I caught her in the kitchen fumbling with a recipe book. She noticed me and looked away, embarrassed. The rotis were burnt. The dal was salty. But I ate every bite without complaint. Then something happened I didn't expect. She started volunteering. Actually volunteering. At first, I thought it was damage control. But then I saw her. One afternoon, at the women's shelter I once helped fund. She was sitting on the floor with 3 children, braiding a little girl's hair, her designer dupatta tossed carelessly on a bench. Her phone was nowhere in sight. She looked human. Not perfect. Not filtered. Just human. A few weeks later, she knocked on my door. "Mumji," she said quietly, "could you teach me that aloo paratha recipe? The one Raghav loves." I smiled. Of course. That afternoon we cooked together. She chopped onions without crying, rolled dough unevenly, burnt the first paratha, almost dropped the second. We laughed. For the first time we laughed. That night I sat on the terrace with Devika, sipping warm milk under the stars. "So," she asked, "is this your happy ending?" I chuckled. "No. It's not the end." Regret looks good on her. "It's not about regret," I said. "It's about awakening." Devika sipped her drink, thinking. "You know," she said finally, "you didn't just teach her a lesson, you taught me too." "Oh." She nodded. "I used to think revenge was power. But what you did, it wasn't just revenge, it was art." I smiled. "Revenge that burns teaches nothing. But revenge that reflects, that's unforgettable." A month later, Anya surprised me again. She came into my room one morning with a gift box. Inside was a hand-stitched shawl. "I made it myself," she said nervously. "The stitching's a little uneven. I ran my hand over the fabric. It was imperfect. It was beautiful." Then she handed me a letter. I read it slowly. Every word carried weight. "Dear Mumji, I'm sorry for what I said at the wedding. Not just for the public humiliation, but for the quiet moments I dismissed you. The kindness I never returned. The pride I let blind me. I thought being strong meant being loud. But you showed me real strength lies in silence, in patience, in the ability to forgive even when someone doesn't deserve it. I don't expect you to forget. But I hope one day you'll forgive. Love." Anya, I folded the letter carefully, placed it in my drawer. I looked at her and said, "I already have." She broke down crying, and this time I held her. Not as a punishment, but as a mother. That night, as I stood by the window watching the stars, Raghav came to me.
You changed her mind.
No, I said. Life did. I just gave it a little push. He wrapped an arm around me. Thank you. For everything. Even when I didn't see it. I rested my head on his shoulder. You will beta. One day all sons do. The monsoon left behind a cleaner city. Muddy, yes, but calmer. The sky, once gray and restless, now held a stillness that only came after a storm had spent itself. Much like our home. It had been 3 months since the wedding. 3 months since the humiliation, the call, the unveiling, the quiet revenge. 3 months since Anya's mask cracked, and something real began to bloom beneath it. I watched her evolve, not overnight, not with fireworks, but like a stubborn bud that refused to bloom until it had felt both sunshine and rain. She still had flaws. She still raised her voice when flustered, still chose heels over common sense. But now, she also packed food for the domestic help, remembered the milkman's name, and made space for silence and conversations. She was learning the music between words. Raghav noticed it too. I don't know what happened, he said one evening as we stood in the kitchen, slicing mangoes. But she's softer now. Kinder, like she's seeing things for the first time. She is, I replied. He looked at me, unsure. Was it really worth it, Mai? Everything. The phone call, the risk, the exposure. What if she had broken? What if she had turned bitter? I placed a slice of mango into his mouth and smiled. Sometimes, we need to be shattered to see what we're made of. The next week, my birthday arrived. I didn't expect much. I never did. But when I stepped into the living room that morning, I froze. The entire room was decorated, not with expensive flowers, but with memories. Photos of my youth, Polaroids of Raghav's first steps, my old recipes printed and framed, a portrait of Arun and me, restored from a yellowing original. And in the center stood Anya, dressed simply, no makeup, holding a small gift wrapped in handmade paper. I know I can never undo that day, she said, softly. But I wanted to show you. I see you now. I opened the box. Inside was a leather-bound book titled Mira's Legacy. I flipped through it. Every page held stories of women I had helped, written in their own words, photographs, testimonials, clippings, my life's quiet work, compiled like a history book no one thought to write. I looked at her, unable to speak. I used the NGO's media team, she said, blushing. They helped me find people. I had no idea how many lives you touched. I reached out and held her hand. It was warm, steady, no longer pretending. A week later, she invited me to a talk she was giving. It wasn't a flashy event, just a small auditorium filled with college girls. She stood on stage in a cotton kurta, hair tied back, eyes focused. I used to believe strength meant being loud, she said. That power came from dominance. But then I met someone who showed me what real strength is. She doesn't speak much. But when she does, you listen. Not because she demands it, but because her silence carries more weight than our loudest noise. She paused. That woman is my mother-in-law. Applause followed. Not the viral kind. The genuine kind. Later we sat on the college steps, watching the girls leave. I'm not perfect, Anya said quietly. Neither am I. She looked at me. Will you ever fully forgive me? I thought for a moment. Forgiveness is not a switch, I said. It's a door. You've opened it. Now keep walking through. That evening, Raghav came home with a surprise. I'm taking you both out to dinner. No arguments. At the restaurant, we laughed. We shared stories. We were a family again, different, bruised, but together. Toward dessert, Anya raised her glass of water and said, "To new beginnings." I smiled, and hard-earned ones. When we returned home, I sat on the terrace alone for a while, watching the moon play peek-a-boo with clouds. Divika called. Well, she asked. She bloomed, I said, and I didn't even need to pour salt. Just a mirror and some time. Divika chuckled. Only you could turn revenge into a redemption arc. I laughed too. You know what the real revenge was? I asked. What? Teaching her the very lessons she once mocked. and watching her carry them forward as if they were her own. Weeks passed. Seasons turned. Life went on. But something inside me healed. Not because Anya changed, but because I didn't let her break me. Because I picked up the phone that day, not to destroy someone, but to remember who I was before they tried to make me invisible. And if I could go back to that wedding night, to the laughter, to the sting, to the insult dressed as progress, I'd still smile. Because that pain gave birth to a woman I never knew I still was. Not just a mother, not just a widow, not just someone's in-law, but Meera Sharma, unbent, unbitter, unforgettable.